Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. We had a little technical issue, so thank you for standing by. But we are so happy to be here with Tehillah Alphonso. Everybody, virtual claps.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we are so honored to have her here today because she's a very special person and musician. And I wanted to give a brief introduction. I know you can only cover so much with someone so accomplished briefly, but so Tehillah is a New Jersey born and Nebraska raised keys player, vocalist, music director, and a Grammy nominated arranger. And she is based in Los Angeles, California. She is a USC Thornton School of Music graduate, and she graduated Summa Cum Laude, and also she was the 2020 Outstanding Graduate, in which she was the first Black woman from the pop program to achieve this award. And while she was at USC, she was also part of the SoCal VoCals, and she was also the music director and business manager. And through the SoCal VoCals, she has performed at spots like the Staples Center, the Rose Bowl, Carnegie Hall, and many other historic venues. And as well as that, she is a very prolific session vocalist. She has performed on scores for Encanto, the Disney film, which, by the way, the soundtrack of Encanto is #1 on the Billboard 200. So that's really awesome. And she's also sang on Space Jam, the new reboot, the new Legacy. And she's also performed with artists such as Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, NIKI, and more. And she also performed at the 2020 Grammys with Billie Eilish. And this year she's making a kind of full circle moment when she herself is a Grammy nominated arranger for the category Best Arrangement for Instruments and Vocals. So so that was definitely just a brief taste of what she's done, and she's amazing. And I don't want to delay too long because Tehillah has such a great masterclass prepared for everybody here. And it will also be recorded so people can view it at a later time since some people weren't able to be here at this moment. But with further ado, or without further ado, um, I would love to hand it off to Tehillah, and she will be going through her amazing arrangement of A Change Is Going to Come by Sam Cooke. And yeah, just take it away, Tehillah.
Starting off real strong, being muted. I love Zoom. Hi, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you, Elise, and Turn Up Her Mic for having me. Like I've said many times, I just love this organization and everything it stands for, just promoting women in music and them and lifting women up, women supporting women. That is my favorite thing in the world. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you. And thank you, all 33 of you, for coming. Really appreciated. But yeah, I guess I don't really need to speak a lot about myself because we started a little bit late and also life is whatever. But just a quick, super brief intro who I am, how I started. Like Elise said, I'm from, yeah, from Omaha, Nebraska. Sorry. I was from Omaha, Nebraska, moved to LA to go to school, and then pretty soon after school, just started working as a session singer, pianist, arranger, vocalist, anything I can get my hands on, essentially. Eventually, want to do more MD work. Eventually, want to do more vocal contracting work. But we're taking it one day at a time, and we're gonna see what happens. How I got into arranging specifically, I actually went to this summer camp when I was back in high school called Acapella Academy, where I work now. So if there is anyone here who happens to be in high school who is a singer and would want to do that, go audition. I think auditions are open until January 15th this year. It's really the reason I'm doing music. So that's just a little shameless plug for that. And there actually might be, I think I saw a few people, some of my campers from this last summer who are in this session. So that's cool. But I work there now as a director and an arranger, and I absolutely love it. Um, but yeah, so how I got my start in arranging specifically definitely started with fully a cappella arranging. That camp, after that camp, I went home and I was like, I love this a cappella thing. I don't know how to do it, but let's just try it. Started trying to arrange in high school. I don't have any of the copies, but I know they are really bad. They were really, really bad in high school. But I started taking it a lot more seriously when I got to college. As Elise mentioned, I was in the SoCal VoCals. It was USC's one of the a cappella groups there. I was business manager for a year, MD for a year, but before I was in any sort of leadership role, I just was so intrigued at the fact that that was the first group that I'd been in where peers were arranging for peers, and it wasn't like a generic arrangement. It was all the arrangements that we did were specified for the voices in the group at the time, and everyone was my age and or just a few years older than me, and that was just the most incredible thing to me that people my age were doing, making that kind of music so young. And so I was just like, I want to do that. I guess that is what I want to do. So I remember my first arrangement for the group was an old arrangement of Jealous by Labyrinth. um and definitely it was not bad, definitely wasn't bad, but I that was my first arrangement that I ended up doing for the group, and I brought it to our MD, who gave me a bunch of feedback and was like, yep, honestly, this is good. Let's give it to the group, which I wasn't expecting, but that was great. And then from then on, I just started slowly building my repertoire in the group. I practiced all summers for my sophomore and junior year, and summer after my freshman year as well. Just constantly arranging music that I heard and was inspired by. And even though I had really no idea what was going on, I was just like, this is fun. We'll try it. Um, at the time, I only had GarageBand and recorded what I heard, and then I had a really not great version of Sibelius at the time too. Um, but now I actually bought it, and we're fine. But yeah, and then took an arranging class junior year that was required for our pop program, and it was there that I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to do this forever. And so how we got to where we are now, I just kept on arranging. Then the pandemic hit, and everyone's work lessened by a significant amount, as I'm sure we all know. But I think for me, I've never been one to sit still, and I never liked waiting for things. I'm the most impatient person that I know. And so for me, just to keep my hands busy and to keep working, that's when I started turning to social media and just arranged for myself and arranged um different mini covers just for social media, both for me to keep my arranging chops up and keep practicing and to keep singing, but then also to kind of start using as kind of a resume, a visual resume of everything that I could do as well, specifically for arranging. And then from there, life kind of blew up more than I was expecting it to. From there, that's kind of where I got asked to do A Change Is Gonna Come. And that's originally before Tonality, the group that ended up singing it, got a hold of it. I was asked by the National Children's Chorus to perform the song first. Did an arrangement for them. They loved it. I don't want to say dumb it down, but I had to simplify it. That's a better word. Simplify it a lot for just, it's a high school group, some middle schoolers in there even. And then when Tonality asked to do it, Alex Blake, who's involved in both choirs, that's when I got to use my full, very complex, fun arrangement. And they absolutely knocked it out of the park and made it so much better than I ever could have imagined. And so that's the arrangement we're going to be breaking down today. And we'll start. So I think I'll just play the video. I'll play or audio. Yeah, I'll play the video. We can follow along the score, and it'll be great stuff. So let me pull it up for you. One moment. Here's a video. I'm gonna show the score, but you feel free to watch the video on your own time after it. It's available on YouTube. I believe it's available on Instagram. All this stuff, you'll see it. But anyway, here we go. I realize that I forgot to share my screen, so that's not going to be very helpful, is it? Let's try this again. There we go. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
To the movie and I go downtown.
Somebody keeps telling me don't hang around. Oh, it's been a long time coming.
A long time coming, but I know a change gonna come.
Oh yes it will.
Then I go to my brother,
Oh.
and I say, brother, help me please.
But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees, on my knees. There have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long,
But now I think I'm able to carry on.
It's been a long time coming.
But I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it will. Change gonna come. Change gonna come. A change is gonna come. Change gonna come. Change gonna come. A change gonna come. Change gonna come. Change is gonna come. Change gonna come. Change gonna come. And that's that. A change is gonna come. So we'll just kind of go literally measure by measure, break down the arrangement. This is going to be like my first time looking at the score as well for the first time in a minute. So we're gonna enjoy this together, and it's gonna be great. I wonder if I'm able to see. Yes, this is helpful to me. To see the panel, because if I don't see myself, I kind of start freaking out. Anyway. Let me make sure there's nothing in the chat as well. I want to keep an eye on that. Oh, thank you, everybody. Cool. So, I see a question. How did you know it was good? Well, I'll answer that at the end. I see a question about how, what it was like trying to get it nominated for a Grammy. That is a whole conversation. So I will wait until the end to answer that one. Because trust me, I did not expect anything to come out of this arrangement. I just arranged it, before I actually get into the process of arranging. Um, this arrangement, so I was originally asked, in the middle of, it was right in between the Black Lives Matter movement after George Floyd, that whole debacle last year or 2 years ago now, and the presidential election the fall of that year. So it was a very politically trying time, like very heated time emotionally to say the least. Um, it was there was a lot going on, and so I think the National Children's Chorus, when they approached me to ask me to arrange a song, I think their intention was, oh, we stand in solidarity with the Black community, and which is great, and I love that. I'm glad that they were, using music to make a difference. But um, being a Black woman in America and having experienced all of that turmoil at the time, I think this took on a new meaning for me. I almost didn't do it just because I was just so distraught. Like I wanted to make sure it wasn't a disservice to the Black community or wasn't anything blasphemous in any sort of way. And so I think when I did eventually decide to do it, I knew that it needed to not be the kumbaya, oh, we all love each other sort of arrangement. And rather than, no, there's a lot of crap going on in the world right now. There's a lot of bad in the world. And we're not going to shove it under the rug. We're not going to pretend that it's not there. We're going to acknowledge it for what it is. We're going to acknowledge that we are living in a very racist and discriminatory, prejudiced time, and we need to combat that directly. Um, and so my goal was for this arrangement to reflect that. And so by doing that, my overall goal, I think listening to just the very first line of the song, I was born by the river. We've heard that how many times over the years. Everyone immediately knows what song you're about to sing and how the melody goes the second that you start that line. But I think because we know it so well, or we've heard it so many times, we become desensitized to the fact that it's not like just a cutesy, yeah, I was born by a river in a little tent. And you know what? It's not like a rags to riches sort of story. It's no, we were Black. And this was made in like the civil rights movement in the 1960s. So it was from then to now, it's just we're living in a very discriminatory time. And he was living, Sam Cooke, in a very discriminatory time, even more so than now. So I think my overall goal with this arrangement was to support the original message and to make sure that it was being heard. It wasn't just another cover of Sam Cooke's song, because we've heard how many covers of this over the years. So that was the goal for that for me. So that being said, the first thing that I did, jumping into the arrangement now, I knew the National Children's Chorus, when they had asked me to arrange this, they just knew they had asked me to make an SATB voicing, they asked for piano, and they asked for a string quartet. That was the instrumentation that I was given, so that's how I arranged it. They were like, we want minimal splits, whatever you can do, just, or, our children are learning this from home. That's that. And so, I mean, I went a little crazy because I was just like, ah! And I put in like 50 different notes because I'm just such a fan of like the lush harmonies and textures and big walls of sound and big stacks of harmonies. So I had to calm myself down as I was arranging this piece. And this is one of the songs I usually try to arrange in a notation software first because I'm a very visual person. I know many, many arrangers who just do it straight in Logic or in Pro Tools or wherever their DAW is, but and I do sometimes like the Instagram stuff that's shorter and I'm trying to be more fun with it. But for long, full length pieces, I need like a visual representation of what's going on so I can know the form. I can know exactly how I want things to move and just can use an outline, a skeleton of the song so I can immediately refer to things. So that being said, I just went out. So this beginning part here, let me open the demo as well. So this is the demo that I recorded after I finished the arrangement, but let me just play it real quick so you can hear. Sorry, can you hear that okay, by the way? Sweet. So this is what that sounds like. So there was that. It was really, I kind of kept it pretty standard for the intro. Top. And because I didn't want to be cheesy and just make the piano, do that entire thing. And so coming from a cappella roots, I was thinking, what is the best way that I can embellish that with voices? And so that's where this came in. So the first thing was just putting in the soprano line, the actual melody that I heard, the actual melody that was in the original track, and then harmonizing everything under it. So I don't know if I'll be able to play it from here, but I didn't think so. It's okay. Sibelius and Zoom really don't get along, I've learned. I can play the MIDI from here. So that sounds like, go back here. So yeah, so I knew I wanted it to just explode outward and then come back in. And so you can even see in the score that it does that. So it starts with just the two voices on the whoo, and then goes to 4. There's one descending line in the tenor, ooh, and then the bass kind of picks it up as it continues to descend. Everything else splits into these massive harmonies. So it just is this big outward moving motion. Let me check the questions here to see if anything is. I'm looking for, always looking for mentees. I am singing the tenor parts too. Yes. In the demo, I was doing all of the parts. I try to, if I can, try to only give it to someone else if I absolutely can't sing it or if it's in a weird part of my voice. But for all the demos that I do, I try to sing everything. And if there's anything too low, I just transpose it down an octave if it doesn't sound too bad. Lyrics are really hard to transpose in Sibelius, or it's not Sibelius, in Logic, but typically like dims, oohs, they translate pretty well as long as I move the formant, and that's a whole mixing thing. Then that's not what this masterclass is for. But yes, I sing all the parts myself if I can, which I did for this demo. So that's that. Let's move on. I'll play the demo a little bit more and we'll just follow along the score. I was born by the river, in a little tent. Oh, and like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time, but I know the change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. Anyway, so that's that. That was the first verse and chorus, let's call it. The first step for me, so I knew that I wanted this to have a more modern feel. I wanted to express that even though we're dealing with the same problems now that we were in the 1960s. There's nothing that's really changed in terms of those problems. We're just living in a more technological age. We're living in a very different time socially and technologically, and just culturally, things are very different than they were now. So I think for me, I wanted to still be able to support the lyrics that Sam Cooke said, but I wanted to make sure people really heard what he was saying. And so for me to do that, I changed the arrangement around it. So that way people were like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. And we actually had to listen to what was going on. So in this demo, so like I said, it was originally only meant for SATB. So you can see that's written in the alto line here. So when I was writing it, this was for the National Children's Chorus. When I was writing it, I wanted to put in 4/4, so that way it just gave it a more modern feel, still classic, but modern feel. But now that it's in 4/4, instead of that waltz, I was born by the river, I had to now kind of rework the timing of the melody to make it work in 4/4. So instead, we have this driving tempo, the I was born by the river. Had to change the timing to make it still feel natural, make it still feel singable, and feel like I could still speak it in this new timing. So that's, for your own arranging techniques, that's something that you can use, is changing the meter, changing the feel, changing the time. Fun stuff. It really does make a difference. So that's that. So changing the melody, one, in a way that still was singable, but two, in this context, making it singable by an ensemble of people, making it singable by a whole group, because like I said, it wasn't originally made to be a solo. It wasn't until Tonality got a hold of it where there was a lot of reworking. Tenor parts became just solos, soprano parts became just solos, and so on and so forth. So I wrote this in a way where a group of people could sing this and sing it easily, sing it together. I try to be really detailed with inflections in my arrangements. So as you can see, there's a lot of grace notes in here. There's a lot of slurs in here. Lots of dynamics that are written in. And this, again, because this was arranged for a high school group that was going to be learning this virtually, I wanted to be super, super specific. So that way there could be no question as to what a dynamic was or how things were pronounced or how, what articulations were supposed to be used and how things were supposed to be sung. Similarly, in the demo, as you heard, I make sure to apply this all in the demo by doing everything 150%. So it's being super dramatic with dynamics, being super dramatic with articulations and things, because especially with high school groups, not to mention every high school group is like this, or not to assume every high school group is like this, but just as high schoolers are starting to learn more about themselves musically and starting to gain that intuition that I think later more seasoned professionals just have and can grab onto quickly, directors have to do a lot more work to get a lot of these musical things ingrained. And so in the demo, so if you're ever doing demo work, always with dynamics especially, always just exaggerating them, because chances are a new group that's learning it is only going to catch 50%, 60% on the first go. And it is until they start practicing it more that they'll maybe catch like up to 90% of those dynamics that you do. And so always just being super exaggerated with all of the dynamics that I do in the demo. Let's check the questions here. Also, I can answer, what does answer live mean? What does this mean? Cool. Do I map out harmonic ideas when you're starting an arrangement, or do I re-harmonize more in the moment? That is a great question. Let's answer that now. One moment. I don't know how to close this. There we go. It's a mixture of both. I think it depends on the arrangement. I knew I didn't want to do the same exact chords the entire time, because in the original song, I have my piano here. In the original song, it's the same chords the whole time, where it was, I was born by the river, B flat, da da, in a little town, and life, then it goes to 2, back to the 6, and then eventually back to B flat, and just those chords for the most part, and then back to the blend. So it's usually, in the original song, that was all the chords. They did the entire song, the same chords the entire song. And I knew I didn't want this to be a not static arrangement, but with not only the time changing, I knew there had to be more harmonic stuff going on as well. So therefore, as you can hear, I'll play this little snippet in the beginning again. I wanted to keep it simple in the beginning, do it more traditional or keep it kind of stick to the original song with establishing what those chords were, just so that the listener has something that's familiar versus just going crazy reharm jazz on them right in the first 5 seconds. So let me go back to where this starts. I was born. So it still starts with that B flat. Sitting with that B flat. A little more passing chords. I've been running ever since. It's been a long time, but I know the change gonna come. Oh yeah. Yeah. So in the beginning here, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this intro section. In the beginning, I kept it pretty standard to the original, so it still has that feel of B flat, a little more passing chords in there, some walk-ups. Just there's a lot of those like little half-step moments. I wanted to add a little more gospel elements, since we would have, knowing that Tonality was at this point was going to grab it on later. I was able to add some more of these little moments to just really give it like a more soulful gospel feel. And yeah, let's see. I know there was overall in this first section, I kept it pretty standard to the original for the purpose of familiarity. Moving on, once we get to this little tidbit here, that da 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 da, ooh, not that, da 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 da. There, that's when I started to add more jazz harmony in there and started to really play around with how far I could go harmonically. So just adding the chords that I was like, I know I want this line in there. Now just harmonizing that line. So as you can see the piano, I had the like I knew I wanted to hear that in there on the top. I didn't know if I wanted it as a voice necessarily because that might have gotten a little too cheesy, and I knew I wanted the soprano to come back in with the alto there to harmonize with the alto. So therefore, I made that top line a piano part, and then I had everything else harmonized under that. So that's where the soprano is, and they were able to therefore quickly get back into that harmony, but without losing the line that I wanted to hear. So that's that. Also, with this first intro, I knew I wanted it, just being from the acapella background, I wanted it super vocal. I wanted it to be super rhythmic. I wanted a more like halftime feel. So I wanted to, as you can see here, the bass, the lower voices started with that. That is the outline of the chord. It was very plucky, very fun, very rhythmic. But as the instruments came in, I had the cellos. I still had those lower voices of the instruments do that as well. So as you can see, the piano, left hand of the piano, and the viola and cello are still kind of going with that. They still have that theme going as you continue in the song. So what is it, piano? Something along those lines. That was still going, so continuing that theme, so it wasn't just a completely new idea that was introduced. The listener had a nice smooth transition going into this new section. Yeah, and I'm a fan of some sweeping strings. I will always be here for the strings. So I knew I kind of wanted this pedal, just something floating on top, something that even as all of these chords and changes are happening, there's something consistent going throughout. Like I use that in so many of my arrangements of like, there's a pedal, some sort of pedal, but then everything else is changing underneath it, because I am a nerd like that. So let's keep going and we'll follow along with the arrangement again. Oh, yes, oh, yes. And then into the strings. Too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I know what's up beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yes it will. Yeah, so like I said, I knew I wanted fun key changes. I knew I wanted more jazz harmony implemented here. I knew from the very beginning when I was starting to starting to arrange and outline the arrangement, I knew I wanted key changes in here, and I knew I didn't want it just in one key. It was just a matter of where I wanted it. Did I want it every single verse? Did I want it only at the end? So I split the difference and had it not every place that I could think of. So the first two verses and two choruses are in the B flat. First verse is very standard to the original in terms of chord progression. Second verse, that's when I start to add more passing chords without necessarily changing the melody. I did change the melody in that, again, I wanted it to fit more in 4/4. I wanted something to be more interesting versus I was born, or I guess it's been too hard living, but I'm afraid. I didn't want it to be super square, so that's when I just wanted it to be more singable. How would a soloist sing it in terms of timing, and then how could that fit in a group setting? Hopefully I'm all making sense as well. I'm kind of just, my mind is just bleh, word vomiting. But yeah, so as we continued to go on the arrangement, I knew I wanted more passing chords. I knew I wanted more things changing without necessarily reharming the melody itself. I knew I wanted the melody to stay diatonic. Then everything else around it was moving. My piano skills are not as great lately as they were last year when I was arranging this, so I can't really play the actual chords. But I can go back to the demo and play what was going on in the piano because I had a friend to do the demo for this and he killed it. So if we go back a little bit, ooh, that was fun. So the piano comes in about right here. Now we're here. Yeah, so that was that, or a snippet of that. I think for what I did was I think I wrote out the chords first. I was just messing around at the piano for what sounded good before I actually dived into the vocal part. Now, I just wrote out. Obviously, didn't like completely write out a piano part because I knew this was going to be more jazz based. So I was going to say just leave it up to whoever the pianist is to create a nice floating part in the right hand while being super rhythmic in the left hand. Um, but I left the actual how they were doing that open to interpretation. I just wrote the chords on the top, worked out the chords that I wanted as I was playing at the piano, how things would voice lead into each other, how it would work with the melody, seeing what notes. I had the melody already transcribed at this point, but seeing what notes with the melody would work out with the chord progressions, just making sure things didn't get too clashy either. All this fun stuff. And as you can see, there's a lot of, after I put in the vocal part, there's more interplay in between the vocal part and the piano part. A lot of those chords, both chords, but then also the rhythmic timing of things pretty much go hand in hand. So as you can see, there's like, I'm afraid to da da ba. Everything is, we really like to make sure that things are going together. So it wasn't just there's a piano part and then there's a vocal part that's doing something completely different. Like everything plays into each other one way or another throughout this arrangement. Yeah, and then I think as we go on, we have the do do do. Because of melody, it's been a long. I had the violins double the melody there, so that way it was more impactful. And that was after, their pedal moment where they were just holding out this F on top, go up to that G, and then ba ba ba, and then that's when we start getting more legato and more lush harmonies, and we really got to bring in the violins to fill out a lot more of those voicings, a lot more of those chords. So in this case, for whoever asked the question about harmonic, if I do the harmonization in the moment or beforehand, this was definitely a combination of both. I think I decided kind of what key I wanted and is where I wanted things to change, but I worked out the piano part first of how that would even work, and then I went back in and filled in the vocal part to make sure that voicings were good, that voice leading was good, that it was singable, that it wasn't a crazy vocal part. And yeah, let's see. Sweeping strings again. I'm all for a sweeping string section. Let's see. But I know a change gonna come. And then we have here, that's when, voice leading comes into play. That's when this section is where voice comes into play and where common tones, music theory nerds come into play. Like what notes can stay the same and how can we smoothly get into a new key without it being like this drastic change. So here I kind of established we're going, I knew I wanted to go to D flat, but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to go to D flat because I knew I wanted there to be like a tenor solo here. So I had established here this is just going to be a tenor solo that happens after the altos because altos don't get enough love. So I gave the first part to altos. Tenors, I knew I wanted them to take over, had the D flat. So I was already in this B flat key. And I know a change gonna come. And I was like, okay, how can we start slowly establishing that now we're moving to D flat without it just going something crazy? So that's when I utilize that little 4/1 action a little bit more. I put it in a little bit earlier with the, D, if we're in B flat, that fun stuff. And so I implemented that, kind of doing that in the key of D flat instead. So going to the 5, so let's see, we're in B flat again. So I moved to E flat, which is the 4 of B flat. There we go. But I do the 4 of 4 in in that key, so that's fun. So that kind of makes it a little flat 7 action. Nope, there it is. So now we're slowly establishing that there's this A flat that's being introduced into the key. And so therefore I was able to put the A flat in the bass, and then start establishing that as the 5 of the new key. Sorry for the music theory people who are like not into theory here, but essentially just starting to introduce notes from the key signature we're about to go into. So that way it's not a drastic change, if that makes a little more sense. So overall that chord progression, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yes it will. And now I go it makes it a little bit of a smoother change. So that E flat major over A flat going to E flat minor. Now you only hear that like tonality, no pun intended, leading into that next key. Now that we're here, da da da. So I established that. Had a big old stab in the piano and the strings to be like, yes, we are here. We're in a new key. We're going to stay here for a bit. We're going to enjoy ourselves. Had a little followed by a moment of silence to really have the audience internalize where we are now harmonically and get familiar with that. So let's keep playing the demo and following along. I'm like getting really excited. As you can see, I'm like out of breath just speaking. Here, let me play this again. And I'll go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around. Don't you hang around. It's been a long time coming, long time coming. But I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, hello. Logic, stop. There we go. So going backwards a little bit, back to that key change. At this point now we've really settled into that 4/4 feel. So now I got to play more with rhythm, got to play more with melodic changes. And so as you can see, there's more here. We have the tenor and we have the soprano who have the solo throughout this part. So it starts with the tenor. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Passing it off to the soprano. Somebody keeps telling me don't hang around. So I think when you're arranging in general, it's really important to, especially if you're changing the melody in any sort of way, just to sing through the part. When you know you want to change, just sing through it and then write down what you hear. And so that's what I was doing as I was continuing to go through a song. I was just like, da 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 da, go downtown. That's what it would have been as just normal ensemble. But I was like, let's spice it up a little bit. So just add a little more, not, I don't want to say riffs, but more embellishments in a lot of the parts. Soprano, I had the somebody keeps telling me don't hang around. Oh, it's been a long time coming. I heard that in my head, and so that's what I wrote down as that would work in 4/4. I think the timing works. I think it's easy to sing and it's easy to understand. And then that's when I was able to go in and harmonize that. So in this case, I had the melody first, and then I kind of was like, how can I now bring these parts out? So as you can see, there's a lot of back and forth in the other background vocals, going from I'm acting purely as a background vocal and acting as like a pad in the background versus acting as like a harmony to whatever's going on in the melody, harmony to the lead vocal. So as you can see here, there's even in the tenor, it goes from the ooh with the melody, don't hang around, and then back to the background, hang around, whatever the part is. There's a lot of that interplay. I use in a lot of my arrangements, but a big part of arranging is knowing when a background vocal, when your moment is, when someone should have a moment. So a lot of when things should be brought forward and when you need to pull them back and really have things focus on the lead vocal. So let's see here. I think I arranged the vocal parts first here, if I remember correctly. After figuring out the chords that I wanted to use. I just wrote down, I knew I wanted da 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 do. I just wanted something that's like, ooh, we're leading to something. Then I was able to harmonize the piano after that, and I had the strings here just double what was going on in the background vocals here. So a lot of this alto part and tenor parts specifically, you see a lot of that in the violin two and viola parts as we go through this arrangement. Let's see. I don't want to dwell too much because it's already 12:50. I talk so much. Let's see. But yeah, it's a lot of, I love big lush harmonies. Like I've said before, I love big sweeping sounds and really like when things expand and explode and then come right back down. Like I'm very much for these really big over the top dynamics. And so I really made sure to, a typical rule in arranging, if you're getting higher, you're also getting louder. If you're descending in the notes, you're also descending in volume. So everything is just moving up and up and up and then coming back down in all of the voices. Let's keep going. Explodes into this big ol', but I know, explodes into this big chord at measure 51. Where I don't even know what I did. I think that was just a nice little, some tritone substitution. We're not going to get into that though. I think, yeah, so stuff like this, it's a matter of both going what just sounds good to you, but then also if you're like a theory person, starting to use the tools that you learn in like music theory and just seeing where it best applies to that, where it best applies throughout the arrangement. That's just a typical, not even this arrangement, but just a typical rule for arranging. If you want to start doing more reharmonization, just hop on a piano and just kind of play around with what sounds good to you. I didn't study jazz by any means. I was a pop major where we are looked down on when we try to say we do jazz. And so just sitting down at the piano and just doing what feels, playing around until you find something that feels good to you. That was what a lot of this arrangement was just playing around at the piano to see what I liked. I see a new question. How do I decide when an arrangement is complete? When I can no longer add any edits to it that would actually benefit to it. Also, it's very hard sometimes. There are some days where I'm just like, I really want just to be done, and I'm just gonna send it off to whoever's singing it and let them handle it. But then there's some days like this arrangement, I was like really, really invested in and really wanted it to be good, and so I just kept on changing this. I was like, ooh, no, this note in this chord, this should actually be a sharp 11 instead of a normal 11. This should actually be an F in the bass instead of an F sharp. Like just random little things that maybe added to it. But after a certain point, if you're just adding, it's like you're a producer and you're just tweaking things that no one else is gonna hear or understand. If like, this snare can come down half a dB, and I think this triangle part needs to be more pan to the left. Like that was fully my right, but it's fine. I think it's just important to know if the changes you're making are actually going to make an impact on the audience's ears, or if it's just something that you need. Because after a certain point, like I could find a billion things in this arrangement that I think I would have done better. But I think after a certain point, it's like, as long as it's still singable, it's still doing the job that I want it to do. Are there things that could be better? Absolutely. If you're in that moment and you think you can make it better, totally go for it. But after a certain point, if you listen through, I would say wait a day, finish all the edits that you think you want to make, let it sit for a whole 24 hours. Don't listen to it. Don't think about it. Let it sit. Come back the next day with fresh ears. And there's genuinely, don't even look at it. Like, don't look at the score. Don't look at the demo and things that are going on. turn it around if you can, or just like close your eyes and listen, so that way you're not like visually trying to figure out what can be better about the score or what can be better about this arrangement. Just listen, and if you can't pinpoint an exact point where something can be better, that's when you know it's done, because after that everything is totally optional. But that's that question. Fun stuff. Yeah, I'll try to answer more at the end, and I'll try to wrap this part up quickly as well. But anyway, let's just keep going on. So at this next section, I take out the piano for dramatic effect and really have just the violins having this tremolo effect. So it's like, ooh, spooky, what's going on? And I have it in the bass. I have the melody in the bass, so that way all the background vocal parts are in this treble, not octave, treble register. Everything is just kind of floating on top of this kind of spooky melody below. So we'll keep playing that as well. Back to Logic. Then I go to my brother. I'm not a bass, as you can see. And I say, brother, but he winds up knocking me back down on my knees, on my knees. There have been times that I thought I would. All right, let's stop there for now. Goodness. To be completely honest, this is one of those sections where I have zero idea what I did. I think especially, let's see, if I go back to D, I know that for here, I knew I wanted it to just come really back down, so that way it can explode into the last harmony, or that last section of the song. When thinking about the bigger picture, when I was thinking about this arrangement, I knew for a fact I wanted there to be some sort of half-step key change between this and the final. There have been times that I thought, that I knew for sure. I didn't know how to notate that yet, but I just knew that was going to happen. So I already went ahead and made that little key change here at letter E. I just knew I wanted that to be like super dramatic, super big and bold and in your face, not in a bad way. But as for, let's see, as for the, but he winds up, I genuinely not even sure if I could really tell you what I did there. Or what my process was to figuring out those chords. I think that was another one of me just kind of sitting at the piano and just seeing, okay, I knew what can I do harmonically that would be good here? Because I knew I want the alto, I want the melody to go back to the altos because it's been a little low for a little too long at this point. Or it would have been if we made it go on longer. So I knew I wanted the altos to have it. But it wasn't necessarily in a key that worked for the altos. Therefore, I was like, okay, can we just briefly change keys? Which is what we ended up doing. So what did we do here? If we're starting at measure 62, we have that B flat minor chord. Help me please. But then, I think this in D flat, that's like the flat 6, I suppose, and D flat. But yeah, couldn't tell you exactly what my thought process was here, to be completely honest. I think I just kind of played around with the piano, which is totally okay. But played around with the piano just to find a chord progression that felt natural and that worked and that helped with the voice leading. So as you can see here, everything works, leads pretty well. Notation wise, I didn't want to put it in, I didn't want to keep it in flats because it would get more confusing. And so really it goes to the key of E major. For like these 4 bars here, and putting it in flats would be a lot more confusing. And so therefore I just had to really notate the heck out of these accidentals and make sure you knew, okay, for example, this A flat and G sharp, same note. They just had to figure out that that was the same note and not an actual jump. So there would be, but he winds up knocking me, da, 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 da. And then it goes back to that as A flat, that function is A flat. And that was basically the case for all of these. But yeah, that's that. Genuinely could not tell you exactly what my thought process was here, but I knew that just played around at the piano for a bit, found something that I liked, and then notated it. So, and that you can do that, and that's okay. This part, I knew I wanted something ascending, so I translated before I even did the back down on my knees. That was a melody at that point. But I knew I wanted like this. Oops. Like I knew I wanted to lead to that. I wanted something ascending in that. So I have the bass both on the piano and in the bass voice, and I believe all the strings are like da 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 da, like they're all just writing up this ascending line. And then I was able just to have the vocals harmonize and the right hand of the piano harmonize on top of that, and I just kind of found stuff that sounded good to me at the time. Knocking me back down on my knees, something weird. So this goes from on my knees, on my knee. I wanted there to be a big key change here. On my knees, there have been times so that's all led to that moment. And here I kept it pretty standard, not anything crazy jazz, for lack of a better term, not anything crazily harmonically going on here. Kept it pretty nice. There have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, and then there's like a little flat 7 action just so that we could really, I don't know, I knew this was going to be the climax of the song. So I didn't want to distract with anything crazy harmonically going on. Anything that I did do that was outside of what the original song was doing, it was going to be very, very subtle. So that's where we have that little. But now I think I'm able to carry on. So even though the melody was ascending, I have the bass line, not the vocal bass, but the actual chord progression was descending. So it was like this more, again, explosion of sound, just ramping up, expanding and getting bigger. I guess I can play it now from this moment so we can hear it in perspective. On my knees, there have been times that I thought I would last long, but now I think I'm able to build really big, and then I want to come back down a little bit. At this point, I just wanted there to be like this release of sounds. I didn't want there after that, but I know a change gonna come. I was just like, that was more just like the final affirmation that something good was going to eventually happen in life, in reality. That was the release for me, the relief as well for me as I was arranging. I wanted that point to accomplish that. So, and also harmonically, I am a sucker for that sound, this like really bright Lydian sound. I am a sucker for that chord progression. That's always been my favorite chord, just that like 5/4. Always been a sucker for that. So that's where that came in. And that is where, so this little clashing happening between the alto and the bass here. So the alto is just holding out this pedal while the bass, the baritone part, is moving. So it's wow. So like that has like this really nice moving motion, and everything else is staying on this G major 9 chord. That's that, and I had the strings reflect this as well. A lot more movement that was going on in the strings at this section by this point as well, I forgot to mention. They're just everything. I think of arranging strings and arranging vocals the same way. I think of strings as voices in my head, and so it's just how could I support the vocals and still bring out like this really big lush harmony without necessarily distracting from the vocals. I know I wanted the vocals to be the main focus. That's that. By the time it gets here, this whole section is pretty much doubling the chorus, or doubling the choir, in terms of voice leading and in terms of chord progression, not chord progression, but you know what I mean. Yeah, piano's doing some really pretty stuff. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, let's chuck through the end here. Also, I'm all for contrast as well in my arrangements. So I had this like ooh ooh and then come back down. The change gonna come, had to come down so that way there would be this really big explosion of sound later. So let me play through the end of this now. A little call and response action. I wanted this to be more of like a chant of like, yes, change is coming, a declaration that change is gonna happen. Change gonna come. Everyone's slowly coming in, it's slowly getting bigger with the strings having a pedal on the bottom. And now we're doing the chord progression more. Change gonna come. Change gonna come. Oh, change gonna come. Yeah. So let's see. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, so I had, piano and violin, or not, yeah, piano too. But viola and cello just hold that D as all the stuff was happening on top. No, we're in a new key now, my bad. Change gonna come, slowly adding on. Change gonna come, slowly, and now I had the violin and the violins come in, now really accentuating those chord changes. And also really big, powerful tool that you can use in your arranging is just changing what the range of that bottom note of the bass. So that way, right here, the cello was here, the first half of this last tag section. The change gonna come, and then that opened everything up, because now the lower note, just with overtones, the actual overtone series, just opening things up. By moving things just down an octave in the left hand or in the lower notes, it just creates such a stronger foundation for things. And so, at this point, like I said, I knew I wanted the vocals on top to be like a declaration that change was coming, and I knew I wanted everything to support that statement at that point. So this is like the note, strong note, everything is, that was happening, and then everything was inverting up one with every progression of like, okay, yes, change is coming, change is happening, yada yada yada. Great. And just leading into this da da da, had everything here. Oh, everything in unison there. And that's the only time in the song that every single thing that's happening is in unison, both strings and piano and voices. Everything is in unison for that da da da. So that way, that explosion of sound again. And then, and notice that the cello throughout this entire section is just sitting on that D as everything else is changing above it. Da, 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 da. And then for this very last one, that's when I was able to go really make it big, like, yes, change is coming, and having that chord progression, making the cello do the root as well, made it just more final, made a very final classic 4-5-1 progression. And that's pretty much the arrangement. Let's see. I kind of went through that really fast just because I could really just focus in on any section for like an hour. But yeah, I think overall this arrangement was a mixture of me doing what I heard versus / doing what felt good / doing also sticking kind of to the assignment of what was given to me, with they wanted SATB, they wanted strings, and they wanted piano. So there were certain limitations that I couldn't have because, cellos can only go so low. Voices can only go so low or so high. The voices have extremes themselves. Violins, after a certain point, start to feel a little screechy if not done right. So just making sure that things were in the right range, making sure that things were easy to play for violins, making sure, even like with notating, I learned as I was writing down this arrangement that notating for vocals versus notating for strings, so there are a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. For example, in vocals, using slurs typically just tells you, oh, you want this section to be more legato, versus in violin parts and string parts, using slurs is like, that's how many notes you want in this one bow. Obviously, that's not always the case, but you have to be a little more specific here, because let's say if I put a slur over this, they would play that all in one stroke versus 4 different notes. Da, ba, ba, da, da. Very different feel. So that's something that I was learning as I was arranging strings. That's a class that I took when I was in college as well, where I learned that sort of technique. But also went to my mentor, Patrice Russian, brought this arrangement to her when I was finishing, because she is an orchestrator and a composer. And I was like, does this look good? And she helped me just with the a lot of articulations, a lot of how technical things to write. So making sure that with string parts that a divisi is written in, making sure that détaché means literally one note per stroke, I suppose. And you have to make sure you go back to legato at some point. It's just a lot of technical things that I was also learning throughout this arrangement. But yeah, that was a really rushed version of A Change Is Gonna Come. I did not think it was gonna take that long, so my apologies. But that's how it happened. And yeah, I guess now we can really focus in on questions for the people who are still here. Thanks for sticking around. Yes, to answer Hannah's question first, because I wanted to talk about that. Answer live. So, what was the process like trying to get nominated for a Grammy? So, like I kind of mentioned before, this arrangement, with any arrangement, I don't necessarily do it for any sort of recognition or any sort of award or anything. Like, for me, this was just a really personal song to me because of everything that was going on at the time, because of the circumstances surrounding this arrangement. So when arranging this, I wanted to satisfy myself, and I wanted to make sure that whoever sang it, no matter what their level was, that it would come out just being nothing less than great. And yeah, that was the overall goal for me, was just that I was satisfied and that it accomplished the goal that I personally set it out to do, and that the client at that point wanted it to do. And it was released, I think, really shortly after like the insurrection at the Capitol last year. Happy anniversary to that. It was released pretty shortly after that, and after the inauguration of Mr. Biden. As you know, there was a lot that was, if you watch the video, you'll see there's so many political, it's very politically charged. Like, there's no hiding that. What it has to do with, the Black Lives Matter movement, has to do with police brutality, has to do with just the presidential election and government things in general. So, not even knowing there was going to be a video to this, I'm really glad that they paired it the way that they did, because they did a marvelous job. But Grammys, how essentially it works, I'd like to think about it. The easiest way I've described it is thinking about it in like a quarterfinal, semifinal, final way. So like the quarterfinal round, that's considered the consideration period. That's where all the music that was released in that time period can get submitted to be considered for a Grammy. It's considered for the ballot. At that point, there's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of songs that are being considered. They have a committee of people that just that round is purely just to put everything into the right category. There's no bias in there. There's no actual award. It's just to make sure that the song that you submit, if you submitted a rap song, just making sure that it's submitted in the right category. It's submitted for best rap recording versus best R&B recording. So just making sure that everything's in the right category. So that's a consideration period / submission period. Then to get nominated, so in that consideration period, that's now when you're officially on that ballot. Now members of the Recording Academy can then vote for a certain number of songs in a certain number of categories of what they want to be nominated. So it's a really definitely a big popularity contest in a way, for sure, as just most of these award shows are. But yeah, so that was that. And then after it gets nominated, from there, that's when members of the Recording Academy can vote for one in a certain amount of categories as well. And I think they changed the rules a little bit this year, because typically there's like an electoral college sort of thing where you have like the popular vote, and then you have the electoral college who actually decides who becomes president. And then, yeah. So typically in the Grammys is a similar thing where you have the actual numbers themselves. And then you have a committee in the middle who, I think whatever the special committee is, they're the ones who actually decide who gets the win, and then they get the win. But this year, I believe they took out that committee. So it's very much just a numbers game at this point. So that's that. It's very interesting. But the question was, I didn't even look because I'm crazy. What was the process like? So the big thing is just finding someone who's a member of the Recording Academy to sponsor it, essentially, to submit that song, because that's the only way you can be considered as having a member submit your song on your behalf, essentially. Alex Blake, who is the founder of Tonality and the conductor of this piece, he submitted a bunch of pieces for on Tonality's behalf for a bunch of different awards that got in the consideration ballot. I'm still shocked that this one got nominated, because again, I expected nothing. I really didn't do any sort of promotion for it. I was like, yep, I arranged it. Cool. When it was on the consideration ballot, my brain was like, oh, that's nice. And I think I was like, yeah, if there's, for whatever reason, anyone on my followers list who is a Recording Academy member and wants to vote for it, like, sure. I think I posted about it once and then left it alone. And then all of a sudden I get like 50 phone calls. It's like, hey, did you know you've been nominated for a Grammy today? So it's really crazy. How did I know it was good enough? I didn't, because again, I was not the one who was in charge of submitting it, and I didn't expect anything out of it. I didn't really think about it. Like, I didn't arrange it being like, I want this to win a Grammy. I just arranged it being like, I need this to satisfy my soul and to be a tribute to the Black community and to everything that's going on right now. Like, that was my goal. And so in that case, it was good enough for me. I genuinely did not think about any rewards or any recognition for that. So crazy stuff. So that's that. Let's keep looking at some questions. Yes, I answered this one. Do you recommend, oh wait, there's this one. How do you structure your arranging process to manage exhaustion? Oh, this is a good one. How do you structure your arranging process to manage exhaustion, boredom, getting stuck? That is a great question, Miss Kieran. Thank you for that. I think, honestly, there's a lot of power in just stepping away from an arrangement when you're getting stuck. I found that the second that I start to feel like something is a chore or something is a lot harder than it needs to be, that's when I say, okay, I've been staring at the screen for 5 hours. I only have 8 notes on the page. I'm not getting anywhere. Obviously, like, my creative juices are just not flowing at the moment. The best thing that I can do in that moment is just to take a break, step away from it, read a book, do anything that is not music related in that point, or not at least related to the arrangement that I'm working on. And a lot of the time I'll come back either refreshed and ready to go, or like while I'm like reading my book, I'll just like hear a melody in my head and be like, that's it. That's what I was looking for this arrangement. I'll just run back to my computer and I'll actually be inspired to finish it off. But then sometimes there's some arrangements where maybe the song itself didn't really inspire me, that someone had hired me to do, that I thought was going to be fun but wasn't, or something's really hard to translate into like an a cappella arrangement, or translate into a 5-piece string arrangement, or whatever it might be. In those cases, it's just a matter of that's when it gets really important to know what your strengths are and to know what you're really good at, and just apply those techniques to do what you need to do. Like, a lot of the time, like recently, the end of last year, I think I think I had just gotten backed up with work and I had been extremely burnt out. The thought of putting one more note on Sibelius was exhausting to me. So in that case, I just had really had to like remove my to say, you know what, I know that I'm a good arranger. I know that whatever I do is going to be good enough for whoever's hiring me to do this. Not everything I have to do has to be the best work I've ever created. So in those cases, I just literally just slap down something that I know, a chord progression that I know will work, or syllables that I know will work in an a cappella setting anyway, chords that I know will work, and certain melodies that I've used in the past, or chord and yes, melodies that I've used in the past and syllables that I've used in the past, just like really putting down what I know for a fact will work, knowing that no, it's not going to be my best work, but being okay with that. And yeah, not everything has to be a masterpiece. Not everything has to be the best arrangement you've ever done in your life, and it's a-okay. That's that. I hope that kind of answered your question. I wish it's being an artist is hard because people don't really talk about creative burnout, and you can say like logistically, yes, I can take on 10 arrangements this month, but I always forget that, oh no, after every arrangement I am just creatively exhausted. If I don't get that time to recharge, then everything after that is just going to suck. And so it's just a matter of what you know your strengths are and what works best for you in that case. Hope that kind of answered your question. Let's see, a few more. Are you looking for a mentee? If so, I call dibs. Literally just email me. I am so open to all of the things. I do some arranging lessons. I've done arranging lessons in the past, or just like giving feedback on your arrangements and stuff. Like, I am all here for it. Or you just want to talk about life, all here for it. So by the way, here is my like work email. So that way, if anyone does want to contact me after this, you are more than welcome to. Finally, the last question in here I see is, do you recommend any resources outside of uni courses to learn arranging in detail? Let's see. I kind of said this in our Instagram live the other day, but when it comes to arranging, the best thing you can do, honestly, is just to do it. Just to do it. That's how I started arranging. I didn't take any actual arranging classes or lessons until I think my junior year of college, but I was doing a bunch of arranging before that for my a cappella group. And that one class, it wasn't even my favorite class in the world. I think I learned a lot of techniques from it in terms of like the ranges of different instruments and how things can be used and how things can be notated, like the technical aspect of a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, it can't teach you how to be creative, and it can't teach you how to create new ideas, you know? At the end of the day, it's what you hear in your head and what feels good to you that you put down on paper. So I would just say, I mean, I can say for a cappella arranging anyway, that's how I got my start. Just going into GarageBand, going into Logic, whatever it is that you're using, and just recording what you hear. And eventually, as you do it more and more and more, you'll start to develop your own sound. You start to develop things. You start to figure out what things you like, what chord progressions you like, what lines you like, how you like your soprano parts written, and also because you're recording them yourself, in your arrangements, you start to hear a lot more of your voice in those, whether that be an a cappella arrangement or a string arrangement or a rhythm section arrangement, whatever it is, you start to hear a lot more of you in there. So I would just start out by doing more transcription work, finding the bands and arrangements that you love and just starting to notate them and write them down, or trying to recreate them in whatever DAW you use. And then eventually starting to use some of those techniques in your own writing, if there's an arrangement that you like, or start to, what's a better word for it? Start to arrange like the artist that you enjoy. For example, I did, what song did I just do? I did a version of Ordinary People, but in the style of Scary Pockets, you know, because that original song, it's just the whole chord. It's, girl, I'm in love with you. This ain't no honeymoon. We're past the infatuation phase. That's the entire song. And I was like, I want to do this, but I don't want to do that. And so I got to do like a really more like funk, rhythmic, fun version of that song. So yeah, just starting to now experiment with arranging different genres and arranging in different meters, like I did for A Change Is Gonna Come. You can do the opposite. Like I did a cover of what's it called, Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo, but I was like, let's make it sad though. I got to do like an a cappella arrangement of Good For You, but sad girl edition. And just doing like exercises like that, taking songs that you love and just remixing them. um so yeah, I wish I had an actual, I don't really have any like resources that I've used, to be completely honest. It was just that one class that I took, some individual like private lessons from a teacher, and then but mostly just arranging on my own and just figuring out as I went. But I mean, there is this one book called, I want to say it's like it's either orchestral arranging or orchestration. I can find the author for you. I don't know at the top of my head, but I did have that book. I used that book a lot as a resource when I was starting to do more big band arranging, big band, more like orchestra arranging practices with my teacher. And that does a lot of good explaining of the ranges of different instruments and the technical side of a lot of different stuff. Of a flute can't play this note, but they can, or they can't do a trill between these two notes, but they can between these two notes. So if you want to change stuff like that, yeah, that's that. Um, Thank you so much. Are there any more questions at all that I would be able to answer? Sorry, I'm keeping you for so long. Thanks for sticking around.
No, we just wanted to thank you. That was so brilliant. And I think I could say for everybody that it was very insightful. And thank you for taking the time to explain your processes, the skills that you like to put to your arranging. And yeah, it's just an honor, especially this arrangement as well, because it was for a very a good reason. Like it was for a great cause. And I thought it was just so interesting because like in a very symbolic way, it's the same song, but we're living in different times. So you found a way to reflect. Like it's the same song, you honored the melody, you honored the song, but you made it so that it's like, oh wow, like we are in 2020, 2021, you know, this era, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just did that so beautifully, and you explained like the different parts of the arrangement so beautifully that we could see, okay, so this is how you can do it in a way that makes the song fresh and makes you want to listen to the lyrics again. And so just, oh, it's just somebody singing that song again. You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
I just thought that was so wonderful how you did that through meter, rhythm, call and response. You literally use pretty much everything in the book. Like this is a literal masterclass in how to use all of the tools you have to make something new and fresh again, because it's so challenging to take a song that has been covered, that has been sang a million times, and to make it sound fresh and amazing again. So I'm blown away.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was just so great to witness, and I just wanted to thank you, and I'm sure everyone else, watching is also thanking you for a really eloquent explanation for this, for your arrangement, and for your arranging skills and talent. So thanks again for joining us. This was really an honor for us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I love this organization. I love you. I love arranging music, life, all the things. Thanks everyone for coming and again sticking around for so long. Yeah, it was a lot of fun and I can't wait to do more of it. We'll see what happens. My
Oh
email
yeah.
again, it is, also thank you for all the nice messages in the chat. They make me so happy. That is my email. Literally feel free to reach out at any point. I'm not really good at DMs on Instagram, but I will almost always answer your email. So that's that. Yeah,
Amazing. I would love to do this again sometime in the future. That's exciting.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to. I have so many arrangements that I can break down better than this one because I'll know what I'm doing. But yes, that would be so much fun.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Tehillah. Thanks everyone
Oh, no
for
wonder I'm not. I sent it to only you and me. That's why. I was like, why isn't this
oh, oh,
working?
that's why.
Let's try this again. My bad.
To everyone. Good. Yes. Just gonna stay here for maybe
There we go.
15 seconds so that people can um
Yeah,
like
copy,
copy
paste, do
paste.
all the things.
Yeah, I don't want to be like, all right, bye, and then
Right, yeah. Oh, that would suck. My bad.
oh no, no,
I'm
no, no.
technology is not my strong suit. Strong shoot? Nor's English, it
Strong
looks like.
suit. I think that's the
Suit.
word, right?
It is, yes.
All
Sweet.
right.
But reach out with any questions, all the things. I'm happy to answer.
Oh, and thank you. Somebody said happy late birthday. That's very
Queen.
sweet. Thank you, everybody. And thanks everyone for coming. There will be more master classes in the future, and just be on the lookout. This was a Turn Up Her Mic masterclass, in case y'all didn't know, with the incredible Tehillah Alphonso. You can find her on Instagram at I am Tehillah. Round of applause. Yes, Roxy. She's a great friend of mine. Yeah, you can find her on the internet, very easy to find because she's done a lot, so can't really miss her. All right, well, if that's all the questions and everything, then I would love to wish everyone a happy new year and a great week ahead.
Hi,
All
everyone.
right, see you. Bye. Thank you.